Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my New York Times vlog. I've got a few days of reading left to do for my full 4 weeks of being subscribed. And, I've been talking about some articles and some stuff that's been going on. But today, I more want to talk about issues I have with how the online version of the New York Times is formatted and how it's extremely confusing for me and unnecessarily weird, and even some of the writers within the New York Times are very confused by it. So let's not bury the lead here. Who has an issue with the way and kind of categorization of op-ed articles, editorial articles, news articles, and how clear it is and how they're distinct from each other within the context of the New York Times? And yes, it is Ross Douthat who said something in the mid-June episode of the Argument podcast with Ross Douthat, Michelle Goldberg, and Frank Bruni. And overall, I've listened to this podcast a few times now for the vlog. Not my favorite, wouldn't recommend it, but I digress. Ross says, quote, "But I think this lets me pull this back to my feelings about what's distinctive about the Trump era, which is that I think people have always had that kind of confusion as readers, and only deep-dive journalists, and not even us, fully understands the distinction between the op-ed page and the editorial page and the news page. Things that are so important to journalism's self-conceptions but less important to the readers." Great point. So if you follow me on Twitter, about a month ago, I displayed confusion about where an editorial article by the editorial board is the byline, where that article was in the New York Times online website, and it was June 24th, and here is the editorial page sorted by date, and as you can see, there is no article on June 24th. And I'm like, that's weird. And then later, I found it in the op-ed section of the New York Times, but I was looking for it in the editorial board section of the New York Times, and it was called, like, The Jobs We Need or something, and it was actually a good article. But it makes it confusing to try to go back and find things, especially for me as someone who's, like, trying to review certain things I read. If I can't find what I'm reading, it's just ridiculous. And as Ross Douthat admitted, he's not very clear on some of these distinctions either. And I have no idea what this distinction is. I really don't. If it's not the opinion of the editorial board, then just let the editor have a byline instead of making it the editorial board's byline. Presumably, they aren't putting it on the editorial board page because not all the editorial board agrees with it, but maybe a certain percentage of the editorial board does agree with it, but like not enough of a percentage for them to put it on the editorial board page. But like if the editorial board doesn't really agree with it for the most part, then it shouldn't have the editorial board byline, because it's just confusing to people who read the New York Times, and they might see byline editorial board and they might think, oh, the editorial board does think this, when in actuality maybe not all of them do. Or I'm just like speculating here because I have no idea, but I think my confusion's understandable because some of the editorial board byline articles are one place and some are just not in that place. All right, now we're going to talk about the difference between opinion pieces and news pieces. And like I said, I tried to read every opinion within the last 4 weeks, and I've mostly kept up with that. But I haven't read all the news pieces. But when you read the opinion pieces, a lot of times you realize quite quickly that some of the opinion pieces are almost just news articles. So, for example, when I was talking about the David Leonhardt graphs in one of my last few videos, those are very low opinion pieces. He's mostly just talking about the statistics, and then he has like a very small, maybe kind of sort of opinion at the end. but like not really. But it is an opinion piece, I guess, because he's talking about statistics. So like, let's say he's talking about black men making half as much money overall as white men. Presumably he's talking about that because he thinks it's problematic that black men make less than white men, like significantly less, and it's actually the same ratio less that they made in 1950 compared to white men. So yes, you probably wouldn't see like a white supremacist or something characterizing those statistics or even talking about those statistics at all, but if they did talk about them, they wouldn't be talking about them in the same way as David Leonhardt. But like, you can say that about almost any news article to one extent or another. Like, no matter what, there's going to be some bias. And it's just kind of weird to go and like, it's fairly jarring actually to go from opinion pieces that are basically just news articles talking about statistics and graphs and issues within our society to some extent and how our society's changed or hasn't changed. It's jarring to go from that to like Bret Stephens like giving his very detailed opinion on statues and then like transitioning into like comparing Andrew Jackson to Bernie Sanders because of their opinions on like centralized banking, and then trying to tie Sanders into like Jackson's racist views, even though Sanders doesn't really have anti-Native American racism. In fact, he's like one of the few politicians who I ever see actually talking about Native American issues. But like Stevenson's like throwing in like all these random opinions that have nothing to do with statues within his article, and he's just like a clear and obvious hack, right? And then he starts talking about like more statue opinions and stuff, and it's just like, come on, man, this is a dog poop article. Like, do I have to read 5 more articles about statues? Like, they need to separate the opinion section into like 2 sections, like total hack opinions and then like mostly statistics with like tiny amount of opinion. And there's actually a lot in this category too, especially from like university professors who are like talking about their research in a certain field. Like, I remember one of the first articles I read for this vlog was I think it was 2 professors at University of Colorado who were economic environmentalists, and they were talking about how much more expensive it would be to not do anything about climate change in the long run. So I guess like they're giving their opinion that we should do something about climate change, but they're also talking about their research very extensively and why they have that opinion, and they're like experts in the field. So it's almost more of like a Scientific America article or whatever, or like some sort of like tech magazine article, more so than on what you'd consider an op-ed. But like, I guess it's kind of an op-ed too, because they're giving their opinion backed up by facts. But I mean, some people just don't back up their opinions with facts, or they like come up with like these like absurd, irrelevant facts and like try to tie it to their opinion. But yeah, anyway, I guess it just comes down to like the massive disparity in terms of quality when it comes to writers within the New York Times op-ed page, with Bret Stephens being on like the low end of quality and just mostly being a hack as well to not being a good writer. And then like, you know, Jamal Bowie on like the higher end of equality, a lot of these professors on the higher end of quality. My third overall issue, there's a lot of issues within this issue, but the difference between the phone app and the computer and how it's laid out and stuff, because I do like to read on my phone because I'm not always at my computer. So like, let's go to sections here. So you've got most popular, opinion, world, US, blah, blah, blah. So first of all, these sections are in a different order on my phone, which I know is like a little nitpicky, but it's frustrating. But let's click on opinion. My phone takes little to load for some reason. So on the computer, they're organized by like date that they're published, and they'll always be kind of in the same order. But then on the phone, it's kind of got like this sort of like trending sort of thing, like you would find on Twitter or Instagram or something. So like the first article here posted 1 hour ago, Then the next one posted a day ago, 2 days ago, 22 hours ago, 2 hours ago, 22 hours. Like, it's 3 days ago. It's all over the place. And there's no, like, search parameters to make it, appear like, oh, these are the ones from today, and then these are the ones from yesterday. And I wish there was just like a sort of option to just change it so it shows up the same way on the computer. Because what ends up happening, let's see, yes, here's a sticky note. Most of these are in my room because I was organizing them. This one's pretty old, I think. But yeah, I mean, I've got 3 articles with my ranking system because I've got like a Google Doc of all the op-ed articles. And yeah, I have those because on my phone, when I read things, they're in like a different order. So I have to remember what I read by like the name of the article, not like, oh, these are the ones from today, and I'm going to read like the last 3 ones from today. And if it were in a consistent order, I would be able to not have to rewrite the name of every article. I would just say, oh, here's the order. Or here's one that I read, and then the next 3 down in the list. I guess my point of all this is it has been difficult for me to have like these 2 extremely different organizing systems, and you don't really have the option to make it organized in the same way on your phone and your computer. Oh, and also on the computer, I do like that you can organize by editorials most of the time. We got into that not always being the case earlier, but you can organize editorials, op-eds, contributors, and op-ed columnists, and the columnists are the ones who write articles weekly, and the contributors are the ones that, they get to write once in a while, or like university professors and stuff. So yeah, to me, it's just unnecessarily confusing, and I prefer the computer formatted system, but I would also prefer to read on my phone more than I do. So it's just like frustrating. And I'm like, oh, I can't like organize this in my head now. I've got to wait till I get home. And like, I think I've probably incidentally missed articles and reading articles due to the formatting confusion. I try not to, but like, I mean, there's only so much. Like, I've got to read the articles and go through the New York Times unnecessarily confusing publishing and organization system. Like, no. But yeah, that's my video. I'm going to be doing a tier list ranking video. I'll talk about maybe one more article or something that I'm not a big fan of or something. And I'll just do like a vlog, overall opinions about being a New York Times subscriber. I'll talk about the book section a bit maybe, even though I definitely didn't read all of the articles from that. But I do have some things to say. And yeah, that's mostly everything. So like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, blah, blah, blah. See ya.